first teaser for the final season of Game of Thrones debuted on HBO. So far, the only footage we've seen from this season was in a trailer for HBO's 2019 lineup. There, we saw Daenerys Targaryen and Sansa Stark meeting for the very first time. Rather than giving us a clip of new footage, we instead got an extended scene that will not actually end up in the final season. Naturally, it left us with a lot more questions than answers. Here's a breakdown of what we saw in this Game of Thrones Season 8 teaser. The teaser is called The Crypts of Winterfell. The first thing we see is Jon Snow walking down a dark hallway in Winterfell's crypts, with torch in hand. He walks past a statue of Lyanna Stark. That's when we hear,
"You have to protect him."
This is a callback to Season 6, Episode 10, The Winds of Winter. It's in the Tower of Joy, which we see in a flashback of sorts thanks to Bran Stark, who is now the Three-Eyed Raven. In the scene, Lyanna has just given birth to Jon, and Ned arrives at the guarded fortress.
Ned,
Lyanna.
if Robert finds out, you'll kill him. You know he will. You have to protect him.
Lyanna is asking Ned to protect Jon from Robert Baratheon. Robert, at that time, was supposed to marry Lyanna, but Jon isn't Robert's child. No, he's Rhaegar Targaryen's son. Lyanna and Rhaegar's affair, of course, made Robert mad, leading to Robert's rebellion, which ended with Robert on the Iron Throne. But more than anything, this scene is definitive proof that Jon is a Stark by blood, and also has a claim to the throne because he's Rhaegar Targaryen's son, which makes Jon a Targaryen, descendant of Aerys Targaryen, the Mad King.
Burn them all!
Obviously, at this point, Jon doesn't know he has Targaryen blood because he wouldn't have, you know.
You have to protect him.
Now, the next one might seem like a minor detail, but it's actually very important. In the teaser, we see a feather land on the ground. Later in the teaser, we'll see that same feather freeze. The feather is actually a callback all the way to the pilot, when then King Robert Baratheon places it on Lyanna's crypt statue. We saw it again in the 4th episode of Season 5, Sons of the Harpy, in which Sansa, visiting her aunt's statue, sees it and picks it up. The truth about Jon Snow is hinted at in both episodes featuring the feather. In the pilot, King Robert and Ned discussed Rhaegar and Lyanna for the first time. When Robert says he dreams of killing Rhaegar every night, Ned replies by saying, "The Targaryens are gone." "Not all of them," Robert replies. The episode then cuts to Daenerys and Viserys Targaryen, but we now know that they weren't the last surviving Targaryens. The feather's second appearance is in Season 5 when Sansa visits the crypts after returning to Winterfell. While standing at Lyanna's crypt, she notices the feather and picks it up. She and Littlefinger discuss what happened between Rhaegar and Lyanna. Sansa repeats a widely accepted falsehood about Rhaegar and Lyanna.
He kidnapped her and raped her.
That he captured her against her will and brought her to the Tower of Joy. But Rhaegar and Lyanna were actually in love and secretly eloped together.
I am hers, and she is mine, from this day until the end of my days.
Robert's rebellion was built on a lie.
Littlefinger doesn't correct Sansa, but instead gives her a knowing smirk.
This horror that's come to my family.
Next in the teaser, we cut to Sansa walking down that same passageway. She walks past the Catelyn statue, which seems to almost whisper to her.
This horror that's come to my family.
We then see Arya Stark. In the background, we hear the rest of this quote.
It's all because I couldn't love a motherless child.
The full quote is,
This horror that's come to my family. It's all because I couldn't love a motherless child.
This comes from Season 3, Episode 2, Dark Wings, Dark Words. She's talking to Talisa, Robb Stark's love, in the woods on the way to Lord Edmure Tully's funeral. Catelyn is under the impression that Jon is Ned's illegitimate child from an affair. In this quote, she regrets not being a real mother to Jon and letting jealousy take over.
When my husband brought that baby home from the war, I couldn't bear to look at him.
Catelyn died never knowing the truth about Jon, but she's right about how Jon's entrance into her family has complicated things. But it could also be the thing that sets things right if Jon takes the throne at King's Landing. Then, the teaser gives us a cameo from another character that we haven't heard from in ages. It's a statue of Ned Stark, whose Season 1 death in the episode Baelor shocked the world and set the tone for the entire series. Jon turns to the statue as we hear,
"You are a Stark. You might not have my name, but you have my blood."
This was from Season 1, Episode 2, King's Road. It's an important line.
"And you are a Stark. You might not have my name, but you have my blood."
This was perhaps our first hint in the show at Jon's true parentage. Back in Season 1, a lot of us thought this was confirmation that Jon was Ned's son, but turns out it's a bit more complicated than that. Ned said this as he sent Jon off to become part of the Night's Watch, prompting Jon to ask if his mother is still alive. Then, Ned promises that the next time they see each other, they'll talk about his mother. They never see each other again. Finally, Jon, Sansa, and Arya unite. The three of them look upon statues of themselves, as if they'll be next among Winterfell's dead. So we know that the three siblings will probably unite at Winterfell, and based on the earlier snippet, Daenerys will be there as well.
Winterfell is yours, Your Grace.
Next, they draw their swords and face off against the coming ice storm. This feels like fairly obvious foreshadowing to the show's final epic battle. The stage for this was set in the Season 7 finale, The Dragon and the Wolf. In the episode before this one, Beyond the Wall, the Whites and White Walkers successfully killed Daenerys' dragon Viserion. The Night King then reanimates the dragon, finally giving them a weapon powerful enough to bust through the wall and make their way into Westeros. This teaser was just a taste of what Season 8 will be like, and while it didn't even show us any actual footage from the new season, it seems to perfectly set the tone. But this was the most important piece of information from the teaser. The 8th and final season of Game of Thrones premieres on Sunday, April 14th. Until then, we'll just have to wait for the first trailer to debut. So, what did you think of the first teaser? Does it give you any hints about what's to come? Let us know in the comments.